I've been thinking of something new and I wanted to share it with you and get your thoughts about it. Welcome to English Coach 3Ts. I'm Tanya, and today I want to talk to you and share with you a little bit about something I've been thinking of for a while. I want to create the most helpful YouTube video I can for you on your English learning journey. And one of the ways that I work with students is through conversation, so that while they're practicing and learning English, they're learning it in context. This is one of the most powerful ways to learn a language. So I thought it would be a good idea if I used some of those same techniques here in our video lessons. So let's give it a try, and at the end of this video, I have some questions for you. Also, I'm not really sure what to call this series, but I have some ideas I'll share with you, and I want to know what your thoughts are on that too. So let's jump in. I want to know if you can relate to this thing that I remembered recently that happened to me when I was a college student. At this time in my life, I was attending Oklahoma University and I was studying architecture. Having just been out of high school in Nebraska, I was studying in another state, Oklahoma, and things were very different and new for me. When I was in high school, it was very common for us to tuck our shirt in. So when we talk about tucking something in, it's like tucking your shirt into your pants or your jeans or your skirt or whatever you're wearing. This was considered not only appropriate, but almost better than wearing your shirt untucked. And when I was studying architecture, we spent a lot of time in class or in the classroom, sometimes 10, 12, or even 24 hours or more at a time. And so there was a lot of time when we untucked our shirts to be more comfortable. Today, this wouldn't even be something I would be talking to you about because it is so normal to wear your shirt untucked. But at that time, it was a big change from something that was, like I said, not only appropriate, but considered to be the right thing. So that's why I brought this up today, because at the time I was talking to my mother about this and the observations I had about this and my thoughts about this. And she commented to me that even my older brother had said something to her about it. She didn't say to me that he thought it was a bad thing. She insinuated that he had noticed and that it was unusual. When I say she insinuated something, what I mean is by the way she said it, by her tone of voice, by her choice of words, she was saying something without exactly saying that. This story has stuck out for me for many reasons, but the main thing I want to talk about today is to see if you can remember a time when something changed from the way it should be done to a new normal. You may have heard this expression, a new normal, recently. I heard it a lot in 2020 when people talked about how coronavirus changed things locally and in the world, and this is going to be the new normal. What we mean is the new way that things are going to be. We had a normal way of doing things, and then something happened and we shifted to a new normal way of doing things. And there's many conversations that can be had about this. I'm curious what your thoughts about this are. This story came into my mind recently because I was thinking about what we think of as correct English and incorrect English. And I think this is something interesting to talk about because what was correct 100 years ago isn't necessarily correct anymore. And almost certainly the things we say now would not have been considered correct 100 years ago. So this story of tucking or untucking my shirt came into my mind because no one thinks about someone having their shirt untucked as a bad thing anymore, as a representation of someone who is sloppy or lazy or any of the things we might have said 20, 30, 40 years ago. So why is my sharing this story with you an English lesson any different than listening to any other story in English? Well, there are a couple of reasons, but let me just start by saying listening to stories in English is a great English lesson if you're learning English, and you can make it even better. So I have a few questions for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these in the comments. The first question I've already asked you. Can you relate to this story? Can you remember a similar story? I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. And even if you don't want to share it in the comments, take some time to write about it, or use this as an exercise to record yourself speaking about it. Another thing you could do in this lesson is to go back through my story and listen for any new words or phrases that you haven't used or haven't heard before. And even if it's a phrase that you've heard but you've never used it before, make a note of it, write it down, and practice using it in a context that is relatable to you, in a context using your family, your friends, your experiences. And then the last thing I'd like to do to make this an English lesson is for you to use your English in interacting with me on some of these questions. The first is this kind of video lesson useful or helpful to you, and why or why not? Secondly, what do you think I should call this series? Can you think of a name that would be helpful for other learners so they know this is something that would be helpful for their English? And thirdly, if you have any suggestions or ideas on how I can make this kind of lesson better, I'd love to hear about that too. If this video lesson was helpful for you, I'd love it if you would give me a thumbs up and subscribe so that I can help other English learners like you. Thank you for joining me on this English lesson. If you're ready for another English lesson, YouTube has already chosen this one for you. Or if you'd like to try something a little different, give this one a try, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.